to Habits for Becoming Who You Want to Be. At this presentation of the Goals Alliance. Thank you, Agnes, for the opportunity. Today, here's generally what I want to cover. Number one, I like to start with the core idea because nobody likes to come to a talk that didn't actually, give them what they're there for. And I want to talk about why exactly it is I'm focusing on habits as the key tool here. From there, of course, we need to make certain everybody in the room has a common understanding of what is a habit. We'll talk about how exactly you use it to become, and the flash of insight I mentioned on LinkedIn today was how exactly you can use that for some unexpected benefits, which I had the presentation towards the end. But I have a habit. I like to start presentations like these with user groups, especially when we've got a small group like this, by tailoring the content to what the people who are choosing to attend actually want to get out of it. So normally, I'll take the time to write out what you're looking for on the whiteboard, and then I'll try and reference back to it during the talk. So based upon what you've seen is the plan, and what the title was, what do you hope to get out of today's talk? What do you hope specifically we talk about?
I think for me it's just strengthening good habits. How do I make them stick? Because anyone can do it for a few days or a week.
Yep. So how do I make good habits stick?
For me, it's more, like the way I understood the presentation is that it's going to teach me how to become maybe a different person if that's what I want to do. And I'm looking for the tricks for that transformation.
So habit-driven transformation.
Now you're starting to catch on. Rob, Joanna?
I want to hear what others do.
You want to hear what others do for their habits?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is a very good. We should all be,
Don't worry, just so long as at least one person asks, we can make certain they get in.
No one asked.
I want to hear the bad habits.
Hear the bad habits.
That's all we want.
Yeah, if we can just focus on the bad habits so that I feel better.
You want to know how to?
Yeah, everyone shares their bad habits, I'll share my good habits.
Oh, okay, got it. Great comparison.
I think you
Different
wanted to
ego
learn
boost.
how to acquire bad habits.
Okay.
What is it? At what point does something become a habit?
When does it become a habit? Okay.
I heard 2 weeks, but
I have a very strong opinion about that,
21
but it'll be a
days.
good conversation.
Yes.
Because it's a little more nuanced than just a flat time. You want me to leave you alone?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And at any point in time, since this is a small group, we'll have plenty of time for this. Jump in and ask. There will be a couple of moments when I'll say, let me finish the explanation, then I'll come back to that. Help me remember the question when that happens. Otherwise, we can definitely work all of those. Now, I want to start by explaining a little bit about where I'm coming from this. All of y'all have at least met me before, so I'm going to skip over most of the introductions. But when I came talking about habits, what I'm talking about today is something I personally practice. There's a little app on my phone called Habitica that I use to track this stuff, this particular technique I'm going to be sharing with you guys every day. When I do it, it's great. When I forget, not quite so much. But this is a thing which you can use to build the kind of output that you've seen me deliver in thought leadership. I'm a mostly successful, so far, father of 5, and I have a good marriage from things that I've chosen to bake into these identity-based habits. But that's not the only application. You see, when I was assembling this slide deck, I realized that we have another example that I can show you. You're in the Houston office of Improving, one of 21. Now, the majority of these people here, y'all already know Improving, but I'm going to point out something that the only way we get 21 offices, a bunch of Great Place to Work awards, is through that. What we call our guiding principles. 3 key values at Improving that don't just decorate the walls. For the most part, we actually mean them. Are we perfect for following them? No. Good news, you don't have to be. But if you are more consistently doing these than not, guess what? They become something important. Excellence, involvement, dedication. That's what makes an improver. And I want you to keep that in mind because I'm going to refer to it again in terms of an identity-based habit. But the success you've seen in Improving is effectively this pattern at scale. Now, today's core idea. Number one, identity-based habits, the thing I've been mentioning here, those are the ones that stick. The opposite of these is generally called an achievement-based or a goal-based habit. I want to lose 20 pounds. That's an achievement. I want to be a healthier person. That's an identity. And the pursuit of these habits is fundamentally different because they come from a different source. But, of course, in order for us to talk about that, we need to ask ourselves some questions. Okay, so cool, I get it. Now what? That's where things come in. Consider your typical New Year's resolution, right? We're all familiar with the pattern. Pop, and there goes the ball, and the first thing you do to start the new year right is, I'm going to make a promise to myself to achieve some goal. This year is going to be the year I'm running a triathlon. No, it's not, but that's maybe that's your goal. Oddly enough, a lot of people really like health and fitness-oriented goals. In fact, they're the most common type. And so you go, you start strong, you make it through January 10th, congratulations, that's Quitter's Day for some reason, and you're still going. Hey, we get to March, and maybe you're still going, but it's flagging a little bit. It's harder to keep that up, right? The good habit, how do you like it to stick? Well, here's some of the statistics behind this. 22%, that's it. 1 in 5 make it 3 months. 1 in 100 actually make it to the end of the year.
That sounds high. I don't know anyone that makes it to the end of the year.
Just 1% actually keeps at least one of their commitments. And the top 5 most common commitments: improve my fitness, improve my finances, improve my mental health, maybe that counts for fitness, I don't know. Lose weight, that one shows up a ton. Improve my diet. Do you notice a pattern?
Which improve.
All of them are improve. How do I describe an improvement in my fitness?
Become a healthier or more active person.
So that would be the identity description, right? But it's usually going to be like, I'm going to go to the gym every week this week, every week this year, or something, right? Or I'm going to lose 20 pounds, or I'm going to stop eating steak. We describe it in these do a thing. Now, it makes sense, right? Do a thing is concrete. I can actually grab that. There's something worrying about that statistic. 1 in 5 makes it 90 days trying to do this. 1 in 100 maybe gets it through the year.
That's me, the 1% is me.
Good, keep being the 1%. The truth is, if we're seeing that pattern in the population, it means fundamentally the way we're all doing these habits is flawed. Probably violations. Otherwise, we'd see people succeeding. If wanting it was enough, we'd succeed. If wanting a goal was enough, we'd succeed. Something about the way we all typically do this doesn't work. And this is where that difference comes in. Now, in order to talk about the key mechanism here, I want to talk about habits. Now, a habit, by definition, is a repeated behavior in response to something. We'll talk about how to break that down, but what I want you to remember is it's a repeated behavior on a cue. I do this when. That's the thing that becomes a habit. And there's all manner of things, positive and negative, which could be habits, right? For example, when I'm noticing that there's something a little off on the belt, I go do this little tuck thing. Or it might be that, when I'm feeling nervous, I'll do the shoe tap. All of those are different kinds of habits, and they layer up to create, frankly, what you do on a day-to-day basis when you're not consciously choosing. Now, here are the 4 parts. This comes from Atomic Habits by James Clear, and this is actually from his Habit Triggers blog post. I strongly recommend it. I'm going to summarize it here. 4 parts: cue, craving, response, reward. What is a cue? Cue is the trigger, that thing that causes me to. It might be it's that time of day. It might be a specific smell in the house. It could be that I walked past the open cookie jar in the kitchen. It's the cue, the spark that starts whatever the habit might be. Right? It could be just walking past the Asian cookie jar. It could be a feeling that triggers the habit. It could be a state of mind. It could be I usually eat around this time. That's so natural. What's the body going to do? It's going to have a craving. The craving is the thing that I sense that I want. But it's not exactly what you want. The Craving is what you crave to do in response to the cue. What do I want to do? If I'm feeling anxious, what's my want? I want to leave. If I'm smelling that familiar smell in the house, and that awakens in me an old memory of baking cookies with my grandmother, yeah, all of a sudden I'm gonna want that cookie. But it's not really about the cookie. Now, to be clear, sometimes a cookie's just a cookie. We're talking about habits, those repeated cues of the, when this happens, this is the natural sequence of events. Not the, oh, those cookies are really good today, let me try one of those. That's different. So I'm not talking about, your cheat day on your diet. I'm talking about the, gosh darn it, I can't keep any cookies in the house. We need to figure out what is the cue craving combination that's causing that to happen. You even heard in the story I shared there, right? If I'm talking about those cookies from grandma, is it really about the cookies? Or is it about something comforting in that story? That memory of when I was young and taken care of and life looked better. Being able to diagnose the craving, which might want immediate comfort, enjoyment, relief, to relive that moment. You need to understand that so you can control what the habit creates. But this is the part that's usually hidden from us.
I've also seen craving described as there's a gap between your current state and your desired state, right? That's where the craving comes in. It's like, I want to be over there.
Right. And so the craving is deeply linked with product number 4, this reward. We're going to explore that a bit, because I think there's an element we miss when we talk about the reward as just getting that desired end state. But the habit that we all tend to talk about is this one, the response. What did I do? Open cookie jar, pluck one out, eat it while I'm going about taking care of the kitchen. Almost without thinking about it. I'm nervous, and so you see me start running my hands through my hair or tapping on things. These responses are the physical action, the programmed response, if you will, that you now take whenever that cue happens, whether you're aware of it or not. Very often, these are the ones we want to change. Because these responses create the reward, both short and long term, that I'm going to get. So let's take a look at that, right? The reward is that thing I get at the end, that target end state, right? I might want relief from the anxiety. And I got that temporarily by eating the cookie. I also got plus 200 calories in my daily diet. And if I keep doing that for several years, an extra 20 pounds on my waistline. Because the result of a habit is never just in the moment. Habits are self-reinforcing, especially habits like eating things or picking compound over time. And so they can be very difficult to change because the reward and craving all focus on this part, right now. What do I want right now? And they very seldom line up with what I want out there. And that's why we have one of the problems with habits sticking. Because when I'm trying to pursue a goal-based habit, I can only pursue it so long as the goal want in the moment is stronger than the existing habit want in the moment. I've got two things in conflict. So, what do we do about it? Well, that's the piece I want to talk about here, right? You got 3 layers here. You got identity, process, outcomes. Outcomes are the outermost layer. They're the achievements, the little feather in my hat. But they emerge from the repeated actions, the habits. And those emerge initially unconsciously from the identity, the personal story that gives rise to the common response that eventually becomes the habitual response, which eventually becomes completely subconscious. Identity is the opposite, right? Achievement is kind of a faulty foundation because you're starting from the outside in. It's like trying to dye something all the way to the core. Sure, you'll probably get these 2 layers and they might be the right color. This one's still whatever color it started at. So if you want the whole to create something new, you have to start from the inside out. Fundamentally, it means you have to start not with new actions or a new goal, new beliefs and new ideas. It can't emerge any other way. In fact, we've seen this time and time again whenever we have like the blah transformation in some company. It inevitably fails because it's a forced from without change, right? You shall now do this process. Great, but it doesn't achieve the goal. Why? Because the process was never all of it. Identity-based habits allow you to change what you can achieve because they're changing all of it, not just part of it. Now, of course, there's this problem, which is, yeah, but like time. I'm not already that person. How do I get the results of the not person that I am? And so we need to answer the question exactly on this, which is how exactly, ooh, I went too far. Do I go through this? I'm going to borrow an idea from The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. First, good book, definitely should read it. But I can summarize the first 3 chapters in 3 lines. Number 1, every person you will ever meet is subconsciously following and living out their own program. Very often these programs were set in us in childhood, stuff we didn't even realize was actually a choice, because it's just the way we grew up doing things, so it's the way we do them now. Or that was never allowed in my house, so it's not something I feel comfortable with doing now. Or every time I had that conversation with my parents, it sucked. I wasn't safe. So I'm not comfortable about having those conversations now with my wife. Example. Number 2, there's good news. Everyone's following their program. You are the author of your own, especially now that you've been made aware of it. You can make changes to the source code. They're just not going to take immediately. This is where we get into like, how long does it take for a good habit to stick? You can change the program, definitively. People have done it in the past, you can do it too, because you're just human just like them. The trick is you have to take the time to make it stick, and you have to found it on a rock, not on the wind. And the last step then is a challenge to you. You've now understood that everyone writes and runs their own program, and that you could write your own. Now you need to go do it, intentionally, every day, not just in stating, I want this goal, but in picking and founding them well, realizing when it's not quite right, and making adaptations. You see, the goals, the outcomes we all want, the lose 20 pounds, the run a marathon, become financially wealthy, all of these are, in fact, to a degree, under your control. We're just not exercising it right. Those are all fruits of a life well lived. The trick is you have to live life while you're doing it. This is that whole, I can't just magic my way into someone new. Not immediate. So if achievement is the fruit of a life well lived, that brings us back to this question that we were all asked as kids. Who do you want to be when you grow up? A lot of us answered that way too early.
I want to be an astronaut.
I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a fireman. I answered that I wanted to be a paleontologist. I liked dinosaurs at the time. And then I saw Jurassic Park and decided that maybe it wasn't the direction I wanted to go with my life.
All the above.
But we remember those, right? And to be fair, the adults in our life were trying to help us, because that is, how will you contribute to society? And that is a question everyone should be answering. But we always attached it to the wrong thing. We created an identity out of the noun of the job. I will be an engineer, or a paleontologist, or an astronaut. And then when we realized how hard these things were, we weren't really left with something else to go do. Also, what kind of an engineer? What kind of paleontologist? Where you specialized? This never came up. Probably because, as a kid, you don't have enough knowledge to even ask those questions. I certainly didn't. But they always ask this question. It's also the cheat code. How do I become? When you can answer me this question, I can tell you how to become. There was a popular phrase that ended up on a bunch of wristbands in my elementary school. What would Jesus do? Y'all don't have to be religious to use this as the key example, but that question, what would the person I am aspiring to be do in this situation? That is the quintessential power of who do you want to be in action. Because if you can answer that for every situation you encounter in life, congratulations, you can act your way into becoming that person. Because externally, none of us will be able to tell the difference if you do it often enough. But how do you create a good, compelling answer to that? This is where we get to, how do I make a good habit stick? Tie it to something you actually value, something that will actually cause you to change, and then make the first step, or the next step, achievable. 2 parts. We'll get into how to do that specifically tonight as part of that. But it comes down to, can I do it? Can I do it regularly? Because if you're going to do this once a week, you're going to have a hard time having your habit stick. If you can only do this once someone sees you could do it, they're not going to see the potential, which means you're always waiting for someone else to give you your turn. Don't do that to yourself. It sucks. Find a way to live the answer to this right now. Good news is, it doesn't mean you're going to be all the way. This can be a work in progress. But you need to answer it, ideally with a noun. Or better, with an adjective noun. What kind? Remember how I asked what kind of astronaut? What kind of engineer? The engineer would be the noun part. The petroleum engineer would be the modifier. Or the electrical engineer would be the modifier. Now, am I saying you all need to have engineer as your definition? Please, dear God, no. Unless that's what you really love doing.
What kind of kid wants to be a petroleum engineer?
Honestly, the one whose dad is doing it, most likely. But if you can give me that, if you can start with who do you want to be, and it's safe to dream on this one. If you can ask who you want to be, our next step is breaking it down. Here's the other trick, though. You need to keep this with you at all times. Bury it down in here, bury it in here, which means at most it can be 3 to 5 words, right? We don't have as great a working memory as we'd all like to. Keep it simple. It's short. Make it fit in your head so that you can repeat it back to yourself as a mantra. Because you need to be able to ask yourself, what would do? I'll give you an example of what mine is. And this has emerged as the result of a lot of personal reflection, and I've adjusted it over the years. So you don't have to get this right the first time, but it has to be compelling the first time. My 3 words are a wise, righteous leader. That's what I want to be. Am I there yet? I don't know. But if I can find a way to live out wisdom, righteousness, leadership, every day I'm here, I can be there. I can become it. Even if I never get the title. Even if no one ever sees it and tells me that you're now the president of whatever. But if I can live it, and I can get the results that I'm craving out of that, what's it matter if I get the title? So, we'd like to take a moment to pause, and I'm going to open up a semi-useful list of descriptive words. Now, come back. Just a moment, please. Because I would like you guys to take a moment to do that yourselves.
We need to put it sticky notes or something.
That would probably be a good idea, if you'd be so kind. And let me open that up here. There it goes. All right. Oh Lord, why is this not doing what it's supposed to? There we go. Zoop. Zoom that in a smidgen. There you go. This is a list of the positive adjectives used to describe someone. So, loyal friend might be an example. But find some that resonate for you. They don't have to be perfect, just pick 3. And leave some space between them.
Are we just picking adjectives or nouns as well?
You can pick a noun. I don't have a list of convenient nouns.
Sure.
But
Well, that's up to us, right?
exactly. And like, if you just want to pick 3 adjectives right now, that's perfectly fine. I want to be encouraging, respectful, and honest. Okay, excellent. We can work that. But pick 3 for now. And write them down, and then that will feed into the next exercise.
That's funny. There's confidence shows up twice.
Confidence shows up twice, doesn't it?
Yeah, on the second row, and then at the very bottom.
Oh goodness, it does. Slightly less than 50 words.
They're prying us.
Confident. I mean, priming works.
1 in 25 chance of taking confidence.
I take those odds.
It's not bad. I was reading something a while back about, Daniel, you mentioned briefly, like if you're picking a habit once a week, it's hard to make that stick. It may have actually been James Clear's blog, someone similar. There's this concept of the higher the frequency of the behavior, the more likely it is to stick as a habit. And so it was actually an interesting article. I'll see if I can find it. But it was a concept of creating a micro habit where you practice the beginning of the habit at a larger than normal amount of times to get that to stick, because then your body sort of takes over the rest of it. So.
And from there, you can use the techniques he talks about in the book to build it out to the full form. Exactly, yeah.
I was trying that for getting out of bed. So I'd set my alarm every 5 minutes and try to jump out of bed to create the muscle memory of
Right,
actually.
beep, beep, beep.
Exactly.
If it only worked on going to bed, right?
I mean, it actually could.
If I was willing to try that.
If you have any ideas, we have somebody who has difficulties doing bed on night, so.
I'm asking for a friend.
So
Actually,
I do actually have an idea.
Danielle suggested last time, actually, when you were there,
Oh yeah?
You said right after you eat dinner, you brush your teeth.
Yeah.
So that's one thing off the checklist before you go to bed.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Everyone is so small there.
I like your habit. So I try to brush my teeth early when possible. And it does encourage me to.
And also prevent snacking.
Yeah, lose weight.
Nah, I brush my teeth. I don't want to do that again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm lazier than I am hungry.
So thank you for that.
There you go, biohacking. All right, so I'll give you guys another 30 seconds, and I'm going to jump on to the next piece. Because again, this is a foundational element, but it's not the house yet.
I think this is the first time this office is called it some of
What,
Like,
the AC?
yeah, I normally.
So
come-
Shervin, what he started doing at the beginning of the month is he would take all the events and say, I'm just gonna schedule the AC out at the beginning,
All right.
which has been the best way to do it, rather
It's
than.
been fantastic.
Yeah,
No more of the, oh, someone forgot to do it again.
exactly.
Yeah, it has always been.
Yeah. All right, quick soda thumbs up. We're good. We're ready to move on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. All right, that's enjoying. Let's go back to this one. Oh, hold on, I gotta go back to the All right, hold on. Apparently decided to jump all the way back. There we go. All right. We were here. All right. So now you've got your descriptive words. But the question you should be asking is, so what do I do with this thing? Right? Having a description doesn't exactly make it like I'm going to transfer myself overnight, right? I can write that on my mirror. I can have it on my walls, like that one right over there. It doesn't matter unless you can ask, what does that look like? And have a good, consistent answer. So let me ask you, how do you become, right? You're going to try and master a new skill. You want to master dribbling in soccer. You practice. If you want to, oh, hold on. Yeah, I jumped my example, right? Skilled soccer player. You practice. Or put more generally, if you master anything, it means you practice. That is, you change how you live. What's the difference between how you live today and that version? That's the trick to answering this next step. which is finding simple, small, daily practices of those adjectives. So I'm going to ask the group, if you're willing, give me one of your descriptives, and then we'll pull out a couple of examples of what the behavior on a daily basis might look like.
Mine was reliable.
Okay? So reliable, unless I'm missing it, means keeping your word. Doing what you say you're going to do. It's consistency embodied, right? So consistency about what, right? To what end? This might look like on a daily basis, make a small commitment and keep it inside the day. So with your girlfriend, hey, I'll do the dishes. You'll volunteer and you'll do it inside the day. So for example, volunteer and do within 1 day. Simple version of reliable. Every day I will volunteer for a small task and I will get that done. Or it might look like consistency to a plan. So plan my day with at least one Pomodoro to do something and make that Pomodoro.
Or I will go to bed before midnight.
Okay, so go to bed before midnight, right? But the point is, right, you could check a box on this. Can I do that? Yeah, 11:59 counts. So does 10:45. I don't care what it is, but you're building the habit of reliability. Now, let's take another word. We can do that same example. Not that one, it's the same. Okay, can you borrow me yours?
I also had reliable, but it was actually like the CEO or something has a difficult problem, so you hand it to the guy that's reliable to get it done.
Reliable in terms of getting or of accomplishing tasks.
Or getting a difficult task.
Like competence.
Competence, yeah. So if we're talking about more of a competence version, the original framing of that depends on someone else to bring you a difficult task. But you could practice to build this kind of reliability by intentionally taking on a hard task and doing a part of it. You could practice that kind of reliability of bringing that in by going and finding other people who are having a hard task and helping them, rather than waiting for it to come to you to be brought, which would be the natural outcome of someone knowing you can handle them. You can go find them and go fix them. So competence I would frame in that particular version as the find someone struggling and help every day. So find a teammate struggling, right? So find Now, that one might not work every day because, again, are you going to have struggling teammates every day? No. So another version on this, if it relies chiefly on building the competence to handle hard problems, find yourself a list of hard problems and do one every day. Again, that do one every day. So this might be like coding katas, or it might be design challenges with constraints. It could be trying to master a new programming language. Something, right? How you phrase that, though, will depend to you. For me, I would frame that as sharpen the sword, or sharpen the axe. I'm going to take time every day to sharpen the axe to make certain it's ready to go when it's time. For me, that would look like coding katas, read a specific book, or go flex. There's a couple of different examples. But you need to find a phrase that, for you, communicates that intent. Because you don't want to have this, like, do this, or this, or this, or this, and it's just this expansive list of things you could do, because then it becomes unclear. Short, clear you. How would you phrase that?
Best way I can phrase it is, there's this guy in my workplace, and he's a go-to guy for like our CEO whenever there's an issue, because he's quote reliable, but like in the sense I just described, not in the way Daniel described, right?
Like an expert.
No, not expert. Whenever there's like a serious issue goes on, he's the go-to. He's always the go-to reliable guy. My
Right,
boss
if he
goes
needs
to-
it solved, I can just hand it to this guy and he will solve it. I don't have to think about it again.
Yeah.
Right. So again, that we can't make other people behave. much as we tried, doesn't work. We have to frame that in a way that allows you for that. There are two parts. There's the people recognizing it, which comes as the result of having the skill and demonstrating it. So we can't create the opportunity. What we can, though, is create the practice. So how can we practice being a fixer, is the way I'd frame that.
It's
Is that
also,
it? Is that what-
It's also building trust with others. Right? They trust him to be the, the go-to guy.
So on that, reliability and trustworthiness, that means that I also need to go build relationships with my colleagues as another part of reliable. So here's a fun little example of this. It might fit in friendly or might fit in trustworthy. But learn one fact about a teammate every day. If you did that, by the end of a week, you'd know 5 facts about potentially one teammate or 5 teammates. But the more you engage in those conversations, the more we'll create the opportunity for those conversations to turn into, oh, hey, you're struggling with that? May I help? But it's creating those connections first. Again, laying the groundwork for reliable. Do you see kind of the pattern we're going for on this? The goal is a once everyday action that allows you to just check, I was behaving reliably today. Now, once this one, dial, is easy to do, right? I've done that every day for 3 solid months. Good. Make it harder. If reliable is but asleep before midnight, that's no longer your goal. Now it's awake at 6, or at 5, or whatever version of that. Or it's, I did my budget every month, or I stuck to the budget for this week. But you shift to the goal constantly. Once you know you're hitting it, good. You are becoming more reliable. Now make it harder, because you need to keep pursuing, because otherwise you flatline. This, I believe, is actually the key problem we run into with goals chiefly anchored on an achievement. Once you hit that achievement, the motivation is gone. Because it doesn't matter. I did it. I lost my 10 pounds. And then fast forward 3 months, and I've been doing my snacking, and in my particular case, my sweet tooth, and I've got the 10 pounds again, only to make another lose 10-pound goal for my New Year's resolution, which leads me on the endless cycle back and forth, and I've started to see this territory before. But if instead of I stop, I shift it to I want to be healthier, what does that look like? Is it really about 10 pounds, or is it not eating desserts every day?
It's not about the one cookie.
Exactly, it's not about the cookie. It's about, okay, what does that look like? Well, instead of doing body weight lifts, I'm now going to do resistance bands. Just a little harder, but still fits the daily habit. But it also moves me towards the goal, where health looks like bodily strength. Or it might be I start doing more intentional stretching. Or it could be I join my wife at a workout class. But the trick is, don't let those daily versions be static. Do them until it's easy, until it is a habit, and kick it a little further. This creates that positive pressure you need for pursuit, which makes them long-term durable, not just durable for flat. They're good to maintain. Once the habits have become easy to maintain, push them a little further to create the rest of that transformation. You have a snicker.
Just a text from my girlfriend.
Well, I mean, even better than that. Now, we asked, hey, when is it a habit, right? That was this question down at the bottom. When does this become a habit? Minimum count. Let me repeat that. Minimum. The least you need. The bare basics. 21 times. Not 21 days. 21 times back to back to back to back. That means that most of us are trying to rush past level 1 well before we're actually done. Myself included. That's 21 times of going to bed before midnight and missing none of them. Because you miss, reset the timer, do it again. Here's why. Reset and pushing the repetition even further until it just sticks is what is going to have it go from, I have to think about it, to, oh right, I do that now, to, wait, I ever did that any other way? It's going to take a while. 90 days is not a bad timeline to expect it to get to the point where maybe y'all have made it through the 21 days back to back to back to back. But that one day, where I ate the cookie, back to the beginning. And it's not like you're bad for this. It's just part of the program. The trouble with the human compiler is it takes forever to actually compile. So don't hit yourself for, oops. It's okay. This is a pursuit goal. You're not supposed to already be there. You're working on it. So make the win easy and small, make the loss easy and small. But don't let up the pressure. Now, with that, means we're talking about diligence and consistency, which means we're talking little and often. This is a drip feed. The trick is keep those tiny pieces of how do I cast that vote of I am a reliable person, something I can do every day and stays in my power. That was the piece we were talking with Kai, right? You can't let it be someone else has to give you the opportunity. If you wait for that, you'll never become. Take that control back by framing it in something you can control. Get to know your team, become the fixer, practice those scenarios so that when eventually they need someone, I can help with confidence. But don't let them stick once they're there. Push them further. But use always the main backbone for all of this, the what would this version of myself do? What would a healthier version of me do? What would a consistent version of me do? What would a wise version do? Because the better you can provide a daily answer to this, the better you can create the habit and pattern of life that creates the results you really require. And of course, remember, the goal in this is not perfect, right? 21 times back to back to back to back to back. Does that mean that the day I got to 20 and then missed it, I suck? No, that's part of life, to fall down and then get back up. The goal is points on the board. Keep casting that vote of, I am this kind of person. Keep going, keep pushing. Don't give up because it got hard. Push harder. And recognize that falling down is part of the learning process. Right? In fact, we have evidence, strong evidence, that when you're learning, the most valuable moment of your learning is not right after the lecture. It's right after the quiz you failed. Because the effort in trying to recover from memory the connection that you had to this thing, the effort from doing that habit even when it was hard, or getting back up and re-standing up that habit again, and once you noticed you lost it, that's what forces it to become real. Yes, it's real from your start, and if you never drop it, great. Make it harder until you do accidentally drop it, and then you'll have to build the muscle or the discipline or something else to make it real. And that working it out is what changes you. You are working against real resistance, which is when you start building real strength. Now, this was the flash of insight. I realized, wait a minute, this whole thing can be applied at scale in a way I hadn't realized when I first created this talk. So, these slides are going to be a little fresh off the presses, but I wanted to show you this because it means that what I've just given you, if you learn how to apply it personally, you just got organizational transformation superpowers. Here's what that looks like. This same technique empowers teams to actually transform, to write their own rule book for what does this look like. I told you at the beginning, our guiding principles, what is an improver? Dedicated, involved, and pursues excellence. By definition, that's what I mean when I say I am an improver. Every improver we've ever hired had this. Not all the improvers we had were the same, or should they be? But all of them were dedicated to their craft, trying to do the right thing, even if it wasn't necessarily the most we could get for our contract. All of them are pursuing excellence, usually in a technical capacity. And all of them were deeply involved in our community, giving back in moments like these. Because we had the answer to what does it mean to be involved. Our culture is not, I hate to say it, that thing on the wall. That thing on the wall is at best a token and a reminder. Our culture is purely formed on what do we continually and repeatedly do, habits and the beliefs that inform the new ones. Because when times change, what are you going to draw on? You're going to go back to the habit or the values about who you are and create the new action. How would a wise person react in this circumstance? What would a healthy person choose at this buffet? New circumstance, same answer. What would do? That's the trick. Now, why does this work for teams? Because if you can define what the ideal team member is for whatever team you're part of, everyone can have their variant of what is an improver. But now, when the team lead's not in the room, we don't know what we're supposed to do because something happened. A disaster hit production. I know how my team will behave. I know what they'll do. I may not know the way they'll do it, but this is the value system they hold. And I know what they'll pursue as a result. This is why agile transformations fail. Because they don't get this. They say, boom, you're agile now. Here's some magic fairy dust. I hope it works. Until you can answer to the people in the room, what should you do when I'm not here? And it be an answer they actually believe. Doesn't matter how much training you give them. But if you can give them that definition together, this is what it means for our team to be agile. To respond to the needs of our customer, to be evidence-driven, to make real and impactful business decisions on the stuff that matters. What do we agree that means? Then I can let my junior dev go off and actually make changes to production. Because I know if he understands the real values, he's not going to be making an experiment I wouldn't want him to. This is one of those transformation tricks, by the way. How do you transform people? Help them define what this means. And to make those pillars things people actually believe in. Now, that's all well and good. That's, you as a member of a team. Maybe that's a retrospective you all do together. Woohoo! What about as an actual leader? And you have to now push this onto somebody else. Well, again, if you've got this language developed, it gives you a new ability to delegate. Because now, I don't have to be exhaustive in every description I give you for every possible contingency. I can say, when in doubt, act like this. When in doubt, be an improver. This is what we do with our user group hosts. When in doubt, go take care of it. Be involved, be dedicated, pursue excellence. And I don't have to say anymore. Because now I've given you the value set I want you to pursue. And so long as you and I are continuing in conversation, I don't have to worry about the specifics of how you did it. That means you'll have user groups who will, the moment they realize there's not pizza on there, pull out their own wallet, pay for the pizza, and then file an expense report later because it'll get handled. Because we're going to take care of our users. It means that when we realize, wow, this place is a mess, we need to clean this up before the group gets here. We've got people who are getting off of work at 4, and guess what they're doing for an hour and a half? Cleaning the whiteboard, putting the stuff in position, cleaning all the stuff to make the space ready to take care of another group. And we don't have to ask them to do this. We said this is what it looks like to be involved. This is what it looks like to care. And we let the people self-select into what they want to give. That means that when I'm talking about delegation, right, which needs 3 things to happen well. I need a goal, I need to tell you what you're allowed to do within reason, and I need to give you some constraints, right? Hey Daniel, you can't file an expense report on the whim for $1,000 for pizza. Probably not a good idea. But I've done that in a pivot to give somebody a war room, and I had to spend $200 of my own money to make that happen because the system just wasn't working and I had 30 minutes. There wasn't a doubt in my mind that I'd be fine at the end of that. Because improving told me this is the kind of stuff I should be doing. Having the ability to answer, what is it to be this kind of person? To be this team member? The adjective noun you see there. Gives me the ability to hand off a whole wealth of constraints and values about decision making without having to sit there and list them all out. I can now say it like that. It's a cultural shorthand. hey, I need you to achieve this outcome. You can spend up to this amount of money. Avoid doing this particular thing. And when in doubt, default. This allows a leader to rapidly scale out how many people they can delegate to. If they can make certain everybody gets this. If everybody can actually answer, what does it mean to pursue excellence? I mean, I've got a list of improving. If everyone gets what it means to be involved, if everyone gets what it means to be dedicated to our work and to our customers, why am I going to spend time writing it down on paper to tell them again? By the way, it almost always backfires when you try and do that. Because if you tell them I have to do in behind the ear, they're going to straitjacket. Okay, here I am, here we go. Rather than self-selecting in with the user group host busting their butt to make all of this space ready and available. Now yes, I'm bragging about improving this just because it's one of the few examples I found where it worked. A lot of companies, we're a family-first company, which just means they're going to expect you to work weekends and Christmas when the server's on fire, but they're not actually going to have the hard confrontation conversations or accountability. Because
They'll pay with the pizza party.
Right? And they think ping pong is a form of benefits.
And what if you don't like your family? It's not really much of a perk.
Right? We've seen those. The reason they're a joke is because they didn't back up what it meant. And they tried to use it as a hand wave from not actually treating each other with respect in a family and valuing the fact that you've chosen to be part of this.
Quick question. What are your thoughts on using like a good example of that? So instead of using an adjective noun, like using a person as an example, like at improving, right? We say, Claudio.
What would Claudio do?
What would Claudio do as a public speaker?
So that is actually a perfect way to answer this. That's one of those noun answers, right? Claudio is a person. What would Claudio do? Right? WWJD, WWCD. If it sticks and there are enough people who draw a common reference, have at it. But it doesn't scale when you don't have Claudio as a reference.
It has to be a common enough reference for your audience.
Yeah. Now, there is a way you can use this. For example, there's a way to use this same kind of conversation when you're talking about user personas in developing a product. Right? Let's pretend I'm talking about a clothing line for Saddleback Ridge. And the ideal customer persona is Saddleback Sam. I can put the question to everyone, would Saddleback Sam use this? Same trick. All of these characteristics I've associated with a person, a pattern of behaviors, the kind of experiences I said they had. If I've made that real, and it actually has teeth, then I create the opportunity to use that as a reference. What would Claudio do only works if people actually know what Claudio does. But you can use the same pattern, right? Ivan the Improver might work if we want to scale that. But I think the power, and it comes down to, do people actually understand what you meant? Can they use what you've given them? And is it concrete? What we did here today, those daily examples, were making an adjective concrete. What does that look like for me? Now, that essentially wraps the main talking portion for today. So if you guys walk away with anything, it's these 4 things. How do you become? Start with an identity, some adjective noun that's loaded for you. It has deep, real meaning, and it's enough to light the fire in your belly. 2, answer, what would that kind of person do? And answer in the concrete, I could do this every day actions. So for healthier, in my case, right? I make certain that my plate has vegetables, meat, and less than half of it is grains. Right? Is it going to revolutionize my diet? No, but it'll keep me from eating only carbs.
What about the cookie though?
Do I have to give up the cookie?
Okay, how do you give up the cookie?
When it comes to that comes down to balancing incentives.
And you get diabetes.
Yeah. Well, I bet that, no, at that point you're probably going to keep having the cookie and it's just going to kill you slowly. How do you go with the cookie? That comes down to habit controls, right? If the cue for me having the cookie is always that I left the darn cookie jar on the island and it was open, I may need not to have that on the island. It might need to go up in a cabinet somewhere. I can control for that. What would a healthier person do? They'd remove the cookie jar, or they'd shrink it.
What if the cookies are in the office?
The healthier person, would they have it in the office?
Pardon?
Would a healthy person have cookies in their office? Or would they swap that with grapes?
Someone else is bringing the
Okay. What would a healthy person do in that kind of an office? And I'm not trying to just force it back, like,
No,
that's the whole trick, right? Come back to make it concrete. What would the healthy person do? Well, if I know I'm going to be in an office with, we had like brownies out there today?
Yeah.
They were delicious, by the way. I
Yeah,
had one.
Exactly. That's why.
I wasn't allowed to go have one because a healthy person wouldn't have their dessert before they eat lunch.
I had
Only
lunch
if I
today.
had my vegetables at my lunch. Right?
I would bring a protein shake because those are filling, and then by then I'm like, well, I don't really want to eat this cookie
Right.
anymore. Well, that's just for me.
But you can invent the answers if you derive it from what is it you actually want? Right? Is it that you want to lose the 10 pounds? You could eat the cookie now and just go work harder later. That allows negotiation. Or I can answer it with, what would a healthy person do? Because that's enough to pause me and, maybe I don't want it that bad.
If I think I should work out 3 days a week, I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't do it. But if I think I want to be healthy and fun grandma, that's when I'm like, yeah, I do, okay, where are my shoes? And I'm out
Right.
for a walk.
Because she connected it to something deep and real. Now, I will occasionally use like a vision board to help make this concrete. I have, speaking of healthy and fun grandma, I've got my equivalent for that. Like a silver fox photo. I'm like, when I get done, I want to be that ripped. I am not there yet.
So you got just pictures of hot, old, shirtless guys.
No, he has a shirt. Very tasteful. But, yeah, effectively, I've got a picture of a hot old guy saying, I want to be that when I grow up.
All right.
It sounds super weird when I have to say
You should
it.
have it on your phone.
And see through
No.
shit.
Then that leads to questions. But I had those because it made it concrete.
Maybe get a calendar of them.
No, that's a little too much.
That's a Christmas God gift.
Oh no! What have I done to
Right
myself?
now.
Yeah.
So again, once you have these answers and you can make it concrete by whatever means you need, repeat the action 21 times in a row. Not the same day, of course. 21 days, perfect execution each time. And then turn the dial on.
Although I do wonder what would happen if you tried it for 21 times in one day.
I mean, it's like a one push-up thing, like, but the trick is do what works. You'll find out real quick what doesn't. Keep going until it sticks.
Or do it over the course of 21 years.
There you go.
That'd be a habit.
That'd be fun. And once you got that, answer the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And as you realize maybe that adjective isn't quite what I meant, redefine it or change it so that that image remaining clear in your mind, the key pieces of who you want to become, always remain the ones that carry your fire. Is this where I want to go? Am I willing to work and sacrifice to get that? As long as the answer remains yes. Good. The moment the answer is I don't know, pause, figure out why. Keep doing your habits until you have a better answer. But stop making them harder until you figure out why you're pursuing them. What do you want to be? Update the answer and then go again. Now, with that being said, I would love to have some feedback. If you guys will be so kind as to give me some feedback on that, should be like a 5-question form, nice and simple. And this one should actually work with the improving Wi-Fi too.
There is a sexy grandpa calendar.
What?
There is a sexy grandpa calendar.
Oh,
But he is black, so I don't know if that would translate to your vision or
probably not, but
Still
to each their own. No, not really. I never should have said that.
It's too late.
Even if
We
it's
gotta-
true.
we
Oh, I
gotta-
know, it's on video, and I wouldn't say if it were true. because I want to be that kind of healthy grandfather for my grandkids. I've got 5 kids. I am hoping for like 12 grandbabies. We'll see what happens. The kids get a vote. I don't, right? Like, I can't just make that happen.
And you only need to average, what, 2.4 kids per kid?
So if I got 2 of them who have 3 and the rest all have 2, I'm set. If I got one that's like me and has 5, I'm most of the way there.
You manage it fine.
With a small dose of insanity, I believe.
Like, do you have hobbies like video games? Like how would, I don't know how I would find time to play video games.
I don't have as much time for video games anymore. I used to play them a lot more as I had more kids. I found that my video games not only had to change because, like, are you going to play Dark Souls in front of a 3-year-old?
No, if you want to put yours on their chest.
Right, that was my answer once I had my kids a little older. And they actively say, Dad, can you play Hollow Knight now? I'm like, you want me to play the scary bug game? I'm like, yeah! I'm like, okay.
No, you should play Expedition 33 in front of them. Scar them emotionally as well.
No. But, like, some of that question is gone. How do I manage my time? By picking differently. So it means that I'll, like, pick up Pikmin, and my boys and I will play a bingo battle, playing that, and that's my video game time for the day. Ching. It means that, like, the woodworking hobby that I have really only happens on Saturdays, unless I get a real kick and I'm up till midnight doing stuff, which does still happen occasionally. I have to be very careful with my coffee. But I make choices. For me, having that many kids was intentional. It was important. And part of my definitions includes being a good father. If I'm not doing that well, I failed, straight up. So it became part of my daily things. What does that look like on a daily basis?
I find it interesting, almost a good thing when I hear parents who have 3 kids, at least, or more, and they say, I'm so tired of being a mom. Yeah, it is a tiring job, but you knew what you were doing.
I find a lot of us didn't. Like, I had no idea what it would be like when I had 5. I knew I wanted a lot of kids.
Yeah.
I had no idea I'd be running into one of them falling off the slide and getting a broken leg.
Yeah.
I've never run into that before.
Oh, I had bad brothers, so I knew what I was doing.
Right, there you go.
It's like you knew, as an adult, you made the decision to have these 3 kids, so yeah, it's gonna be hard. Going to work every day is hard, cooking every day is hard, doing laundry 3 times a week is hard. Anything.
Yeah,
you do
choose
is
your heart.
hard. Yeah.
And what I find very often is when someone is giving me that kind of feedback, be it for being a parent or developer or any other situation, it is almost always a misaligned identity. That inside they have not updated who are you trying to become? Because they view what they have now as an impediment to what they want to be.
My
As
daughter
long as that's
actually
you.
doesn't want to be a mom. And I was like, okay, if that's not what you want to do, then that's not what you want to do.
I think that's more common for the younger generation now. There's more uncertainty and
There's also a degree where what they've been allowed is different. Like, so we'll pause on that because that could go into a whole field of diatribe. But like, anytime you're running into someone who says, my God, it's so hard being a, it's because the reasons why they started doing that are no longer being met, right? My favorite example of this, because I hit it all the time, someone who became a lead developer or a team lead or a dev manager hates their job. Guess what? It's because they haven't found the joy in the new job that they hoped they would, or they haven't found it yet. The real trick is figuring out if it's a yet or it's a permanent problem. And they're the only ones who can figure that out. Because, congratulations, it's a brand new job. It's not development anymore. The only reason you were selected was because you were a good developer. So you know enough how to control the crazies who are doing it. But those people are most often in the need of a new identity.
I think part of the problem with that is that society doesn't know how to reward good developers other than promoting them into a different position, which is often a position they don't want.
And so
It's a misaligned.
it is a misaligned
identity.
incentive and a misaligned identity. Part of the problem, though, is that our society worships leadership.
Yeah.
Like, straight up, it is some crazy nonsense we've got. And that's unhealthy for us. But it's not just because we don't know how to reward, it's because we can't give more reward unless there's a commensurate increase with contribution, right? How much can a single dev on their own contribute? Well, now with the advent of AI, much more. But prior to that, I mean, there's a hard limit on the hours in the day, and it doesn't matter how clever you are if you can't build your solution. So there's a limit on what an individual dev can do. Meanwhile, a team lead who makes 5 developers 25% more effective pays for himself. Whatever we're paying for.
So Google came up with the, I think they were the independent developer.
Yeah, there was like a principal level contributor.
Yeah.
And there is a way, but what percentage of the population are truly capable of delivering in that situation, and how many systems do we have that can accept that level of contribution? Most of us aren't Google. Most of us will never work for Google. No offense against Google. They've solved the problem Google had. Most of us don't have Google problems. Because in Google, yeah, a principal level contribution of like PhD level research on compression can pay millions of dollars. And they're the only company who will buy it.
And contribute to the company in a different way.
Right? And so that level of contribution can then be rewarded at that level of contribution. But most companies don't have that. They have the Mickey Mouse problem.
If you develop something that they can sell for 5 million, yeah, they can pay you $1 million a year.
Right.
But I think it is the misaligned, like we think of, the culture values leadership, and we can't all be leaders.
No.
So.
And in fact, I'll go so far as to state the world fundamentally needs less leaders
Yes,
than it does
yes.
followers.
Yes.
There is even a term that I learned in some of my previous companies that was called reaching a level of incompetence.
Yep.
So
Peter
you
Principle.
reach the level where you become incompetent because you don't have the skills, you don't have the knowledge, or you have misaligned identity
It's
and you no longer
The
can.
Michael Scott effect from The Office, if anyone's
He was an amazing salesman and therefore was rewarded with regional management.
arguably the worst manager.
And then you see those ones. Yeah.
Yep. But like that happens everywhere. There's a combination problem with that where it's not safe to come back from that transition. Right? You go be manager for a year, you're never developing again.
Yeah.
It's not safe. Part of that is the misaligned identities, right? In the United States, if we had that conversation, hey, so you've been trying to be a dev manager for a year, you've hated it, you've told us this, your numbers aren't really great, so this obviously isn't going to fit. What if we have you come back down to be a senior dev again? 50-50 shot that person's going to quit that same day.
Yeah, because if you're gonna label it, come down to a senior dev.
But
No
that was
one wants to
exactly
come
what we
down.
called it with a promotion, right? I can't say we're going to promote you into a senior dev again, because I'm not going to give you a pay bump.
So I actually saw this happen recently, but it required the person wanting that initially. It wasn't the management saying, hey, you're
What
not,
if,
good,
yeah.
you're not a good manager. He said, actually, I
Yeah,
would prefer to be
what you're
coding.
talking about.
Yeah, right. Like,
Yeah.
I would prefer to just be coding. And then they're like, okay, let's
Right.
figure that out.
But we've got this tandem problem, right? Like if the person wants to go and recognizes it, great, we can have a conversation. Most people don't. They're going to struggle as hard as they can because they want prestige, they want the reward, these misaligned incentives. And so if we try and reward them with the thing that will give them more life, but not more pay, and a commensurate feeling of, I failed, most people won't take it. It's not inherently a problem in the company, so much as it is a hiccup in our cultural DNA. Because we're hardwired for achievement, most of us. Hardwired, let me rephrase that. We are pre-programmed by a lot of our experiences to pursue achievement as a means of demonstrating personal value.
And we value the hierarchical nature of, oh, this person's the leader.
Right, the achievement part, right? Like I achieved a position of law. So having that step back from whatever you were doing is a cost perceived. We can, we're getting to my favorite subject. It's totally off base of this, but these misaligned identities are all over the place. Good news is now that you see them, you can help.
You know, this also kind of explains to me, whenever I go to an interview and people say, oh, why are you a good project manager? Why do you think you're a good project? And I always say, because I like what I do. I like what I do. This is fun to me. Like it's easy to me. And I never understood it's because this is who I am. This is part of my identity. That's why it's easy to me. That's why there's so many other people who are like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. I'm so exhausted because they're just not in the right position. makes it, I can use that to read my interview process.
Good.
Yes,
That was it.
awesome, thank you so much. Will we be a copy of
If you left me your email in that feedback form, you can have a copy of the slides.
Yes, thank you, I didn't have a copy. You changed your form.
Yes, so I previously was using a tool called Talkadot, and then apparently ran out of their free trial, and I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to pay for the premium version or not. And so I'm testing out this form, because this is easy enough to manage and it actually works.